This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason Glick, what's going on?
I'm doing just fine, John. And as everyone knows, if you're listening to this right now, it's Comic Con is in full swing.
Whoop, Comic Con, we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll be there on Friday. Actually, wandering around, attending panels, rooting through the half off bins, as I am because hey, it's like I talk about that all the time on on my reviews. And yes, this is the kind of convention that I do root through all the half off bins. And if you see a guy in a button up Blade of the Immortal shirt, that's me.
Yep.
So if you want to say hi, it's like I'm far more sociable than I seem on these podcasts.
Yes, and autographs are free. Just ask. All right. Okay.
No one's going to ask.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you have in store for us tonight?
Okay, well, it's like I've got the finale for another Vertigo series I've been reading for several years now. It's The Unwritten by Mike Carey and Peter Gross. Carey and Gross have been working together for years now in this series, but they also worked together previously on Lucifer, the spinoff from Neil Gaiman's classic Sandman series that hails from the land of far better than it has any right to be. Now, to be honest, before I started rereading all 11 volumes of The Unwritten, plus the graphic novel, I was contemplating, maybe I should go and reread Lucifer again, because I remember, that was really good, and it also reached its end. It had a much greater sense of urgency in its climax, because after reading the final volume 11, for the first time, I was struck by just how little urgency and momentum the series had going into its final act. And I was like, wow, that's wrong, man. How can you just have the series that's about to wrap up and just not have the audience just chomping at the bit to find out how it ends. Then I went and reread it, and it's like, okay, yeah, it has a little bit more, but that's how it goes. So like I said, I was seriously considering rereading Lucifer again for this podcast, but then I buckled down and reread The Unwritten. So in the end, The Unwritten does hold up pretty well as a very literate exercise on how we relate to fiction, how it influences us. Because it's all about the story of one Tom Taylor, who is the son of one Wilson Taylor, who wrote these hugely best-selling series of fantasy novels about the exploits of a young wizard named Tommy Taylor. Not to be confused with Harry Potter, of course. But it's like as the series opens, Tom Taylor is basically living off the success that his dad established. I mean, he's basically kind of a decent guy, he's nice to his fans, genial with his success, but also just kind of bitter in the sense that his dad just kind of abandoned him at one point, and he's left him just living out this role as this boy wizard and all. It's like he makes his living on the convention circuit at all, up until one point when a woman asks him, who are you, Tom Taylor, and points out the fact that his birth certificate and all of his the records of his existence have been forged to a certain extent. Now, this certainly unnerves Tom to an extent, and he's even further unnerved when someone posing as Count Ambrosio, the nemesis to Tommy Taylor from his dad's books, tries to kill him by blowing him up on live webcam. Taylor survives with this woman's help, who is also named Lizzie Hexam, and it turns out that there's this and suddenly this cult about him being the actual Tommy Taylor brought to life starts to take full swing. Now, The Unwritten is all about how we relate to fiction, and it centers around is Tom Taylor like an actual real person, or is he the fictional Tommy Taylor brought to life? The answer is somewhere in the middle, because his dad, Wilson Taylor, basically created his son as a weapon to use against this cabal, who has basically been manipulating fiction as over the course of human history, either just just, either simply by like erasing the legends we know, or by controlling what stories become popular, like and what writers write what kind of stories. It's like it's been an like that's the first half of this series. Tom Taylor's discovery of like who he really is, what his powers are, and his contention against this cabal. That's actually like probably the more interesting part because you've got a very defined set of villains, in the cabal, and I say the cabal, and they're a bunch of faceless guys, except for one man named Pullman, who who has a right hand who can turn anything into living fiction, and who actually is actually the basis for the biblical legend of Cain, because as we learn later on that as the man who killed his brother, over the dispute of what represents a worthy sacrifice, he became virtually immortal in the sense that in this story, in the story of Cain. It's like he's going to live forever, as this person, all the iterations of this legend as time goes on, and then all he wants is to die because he's immortal. And he's sick of this stuff, and the only way he can do that is by killing the interface by which we interact with fiction, known as Leviathan. Leviathan is the collective unconsciousness of humanity that determines what stories live forever. And as Cain lives forever, so does Tommy Taylor as a hugely popular fantasy character. And as we learn that Tom Taylor basically is able to be his literary counterpart in terms of performing magic and moving between the literary worlds. It's like he gets to meet Frankenstein's monster, as we find out that he brought this character into the into the real world. He winds up going into the world of Moby Dick as in order to learn how his powers really work and what Leviathan truly is. It's like this is a very literate series. So if you've got strong memories of your high school literature class, or if you were a English major in college, or if you're like me, you majored in creative writing, it's like that. This kind of a knowledge of classic literature is going to come in extremely handy. It's like as you digest a lot of this stuff, but it's not all very high end, highfalutin. This is hey, it's like we're dealing with prithese and what and oh thou arts and stuff like that. It's like Taylor is very cynical about his stuff, and he provides a very agreeable interface to interacting with all this classic literature. In fact, he's very skeptical about the fact that he's the living incarnation of this boy wizard. And Carey does have a lot of fun with just poking the idea of the idea of someone being a real fictional character, or just the idea of hey, dealing with all these highfalutin literary characters and all. He's got he injects a lot of humor into this series is what I'm saying. I mean, even one of these issues winds up being a choose your own adventure, for God's sakes. I mean, so it's even though he and Gross are very serious about this stuff, they're not above having a few laughs at the expense of their subject matter, and that goes a long way to engaging the reader with this. And it's like, even though it's like I enjoyed the series, it's been good reading throughout. I gotta admit that I kind of wish that Carey had carried out. That's a terrible pun. Carey had focused on the relationship between Taylor and the Cabal to the end of the series, because I think that makes a much richer protagonist antagonist relationship. And since you've got these people who are trying to control what we think, versus the guy who's trying to free us and give us like give us like free, give us the will contain to choose what we like and how and what fiction determines how we live our lives. And this all kind of comes to a head in volume five. Volume five. Yeah, volume five. Tommy Taylor and the War of Words, where it's like where Taylor does take on the Cabal directly, and winds up becoming complicit in Pullman's plans to try and take out Leviathan. And that kind of like heralds like a sea change for the series in the sense that after Leviathan is wounded in this attempt, then things start taking on a much more metaphysical perspective in the sense that everyone starts like losing their association with fiction. The characters, our protagonists, start going through like dealing with the efforts of people to try and like form strange cults in order to manipulate the world of fiction themselves. Going down into the underworld, and also even a crossover with Bill Willingham's Fable series as well, which works on its own terms, but it's also if you're expecting an actual crossover with Fables, it's not. As you've probably read on my podcast, it's that the crossover with Fables is not a crossover with Fables. It's more of like a crossover with the Age of Apocalypse version of Fables, because like when we meet them, they like Snow White has married Mr. Dark, and everything is going very, very badly for all the people we know and love in that series. So, and then you get to the final two volumes of the series, which collect the it's worth noting that that the whole crossover tables was clearly meant to have spiked sales of the Unwritten to carry it on to its end. That didn't work out, so they went with the whole new number one option, and the final 12 issues of the Unwritten were done as a maxi series called Apocalypse, which didn't spike sales all that much, but still carried it on to its end, and basically had Tom Taylor and his partners find just it's basically if the series had picked up from issue 54, which is the final issue of the crossover, over in the regular series proper, this would have been issue 55, for lack of a better term. But for this final volume, Apocalypse, like I said, there's a real lack of urgency, like for most of it, in the sense that Taylor and his buddies, Lizzie Hexam, who may have been a rewritten version of a character from a Charles Dickens novel, introduced to him, like further strengthen Taylor's connections to the fictional world, and also his friend Richie Savoy, who's a tabloid reporter who became a vampire after he was bitten by Tommy Taylor's nemesis Count Ambrosio. It's like and the two kids. The two French kids who worship at Tommy Taylor's shrine. So they and Wilson Taylor's back in after he died, but then they found him in the underworld, and then they brought him back to life. It's like, and then this final volume basically consists of three parts. The first is a take on the Grail quest, as we found out with the Manim that I was mentioned in the series briefly early on. It's like, and they said, this is the thing that will grant you whatever you need, but it can also take any form that these characters want. But in order to achieve it, you will need to undergo a quest. And so, they undergo a quest to prove Tommy's virtue, and it also fits in with the stuff that was set up early on with Madame Rush, who is a puppeteer who also has her own ideas for how the apocalypse should be used. And they aren't. It's like, and they involve basically, disposing of humanity to replace it with something even better, or her own creation of fiction of puppeteer humans. And this first act, it's it works well enough. I mean, it's like it's got the, like I said, it has Tom trying to be worthy enough to be to to engage in this Grail quest, and kind of failing more often than not. And that was entertaining on its own terms. And then we and then also revealing at the end that that there's three different versions of the Grail, and that while they get their own version, Pullman gets his. And then you get a nice one-off, which shows you like Wilson Taylor, Pullman, and Madame Roush, how basically how they managed to go through the entire series without killing each other beforehand, which is interesting enough. And then the final act, Annals of Comparative Literature, basically has everyone, all the main characters, using their grails to achieve their own ends, but only one coming out in the end. And that end basically being the kind where just about everything in the series is, for lack of a better term, and God knows I don't want this to be a huge pun, everything is unwritten in the end. Unwritten due to the fact that one woman had a headache that night and didn't want to sleep with her man. The end. But reading it the first time, I was kind of like, okay, that's like I said, I was not impressed. Rereading volumes 1 through 11 in order, I can appreciate that Carey does do a good job of lining things up and making things showing how things how things early on play out, eventually come to play much later on in the series. But it's kind of a very mechanical way of doing this, in the sense that I'm not thoroughly swept up in the overall narrative. I mean, there are parts of it that I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I like Tom and Richie's cynicism. I love the bit with the choose your own adventure chapter, even if it could have stood for more alternate choices. I loved Paulie Bruckner and his how he lived through his fate as being a character from a faux Beatrix Potter story, and just kind of the Robin who says "fuck" more often than not. And also the backstory bits in in Tommy Taylor and the War of Words, how we learn just how about Pullman's history, about Madame Roush's history, about Wilson Taylor's history, and Wilson Taylor does emerge as a magnificent bastard, in the sense that he had this idea for how to fight this Kabbalah that controlled how he interpreted fiction, but in order to make it work, he had to be a complete asshole to his son and just about everyone around him. So yeah, rereading it puts it all into perspective, and it definitely makes for a decent read. Is it one that's a very sweeping and makes you compelled to recommend it to all your friends? Not quite. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think if you start reading it I think if anyone who starts reading it should follow through to the end. But it's definitely kind of middle of the road Vertigo. Better than a lot of people's best efforts, but not up to the level of say Sandman, Why the Last Man, or say by Carey's own Lucifer. Which, reading this, yeah, it's definitely made me want to go back and reread this for a podcast. Maybe sometime later this year. It's also worth noting that the art from the series is generally really well done from beginning to end. It's also worth noting that Peter Gross had a handout in about pretty much every single issue, since if he wasn't providing full art, he was at least providing breakdowns for the art contained therein. Also for the standalone graphic novel, Tommy Taylor and the Ship That Sank Twice, which I gotta admit, the Unwritten is 11 volumes total, and you have this standalone graphic novel, The Ship That Sank Twice. You should read that graphic novel, because it's good, because it manages the really impressive trick of actually showing you what the original Tommy Taylor novel was like and also making it interesting because, like, one of the rules when you're writing fiction about fiction is that you don't show what the story you're writing about is. Because, hey, if you're talking about this huge bestseller that started like a national trend, it's like global trend and sold millions and millions of copies, you don't show it because because if you do, people will start to question because it'll be good enough in order to it will need to be good enough to make people suspend disbelief as to its quality. It's like, hey, if it's not that good, then it's like, hey, your suspension of disbelief as to why this series became the global trend that it was will just be broken. But I do think that Carey pulls it off with the quote unquote excerpts that he shows from the original Tommy Taylor novel in this graphic novel, and it also provides some interesting insight into Wilson Taylor's approach when he was creating Tom Taylor, the real person, the real character that was born into being this weapon to fight the cabal. So yeah, definitely don't. If you do start reading the Unwritten, don't skip this graphic novel. It's easily one of the high points of the series, and overall, I enjoyed it. It's not something I'm truly passionate about, but overall, no, it was good. It was good fun, and it's like after rereading it from beginning to end, it's like I can appreciate what Carey was going for here, and I gotta admit, the end of the series, which kind of rewrites reality, and then has Wilson Taylor descending to find what happened to his son. That's good stuff. So good job, Carey and Gross. It's like it's not your best work, but it's still worth reading. John, any thoughts from your end about all this?
Oh, nope. Did you say that you could get it on Amazon?
Well, I pretty much got almost all of these from Amazon.
Ah, okay. So this is not one of your. I'm going through the bins as you mentioned earlier.
Oh
Comics.
no 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 no! It's like this. No, it's like if I'm going through the bins, that means like I kind of don't care about it. The Unwritten, no, it's like I definitely whenever I saw it on the shipping lists, it's always click add to cart.
So it was sought after. Okay.
Yes, it's like even if it wasn't like it wasn't like oh it's Unwritten, I gotta have this right now. Then no, it wasn't really like that, but it was always like hey, click add to cart
Yep.
as soon as it came out.
All right. All right, and I'm assuming that you don't know exactly what you're going to be talking about next time on the podcast, or maybe you do.
Actually, I do because my next podcast is the final volume of it arrived today, and that would be Brian Wood's The Massive, and he's not talking about my penis, but
All right,
yes.
then. And we'll catch you next time on Common Picks by the Glick, then.
All right, later.
Bye.